So I'm so glad all of you joined us today. I have the pleasure of speaking to Valari Jackson. She's become a dear friend, and her just her energy, her soul, her wisdom, and her experience is something I want to uh, share with all of you. In fact, I asked Valari to be on the podcast without even talking about a subject. For the last 13 years, she has been a business empowerment coach and a speaker through Fierce Focus Strategies, which is her business. Before that, she was a star in the real estate business. But what she's learned in order to be in this business that I am in and that she is in for 13 years, you need to know your stuff. You need to be the real deal. You can't survive and feed yourself if you are not the real deal. So Valari's wisdom and the solidness has always impressed me every time I see her. So I just said, I have to have a conversation with you, with my audience. So Valari, thank you for being here.
Mark, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your podcast.
So just in case you guys don't know, Valari and I are in love with each other and have been trying to figure out times to have conversations. So we're going to have one of our first deep conversations live. So this is going to be really beautiful. So Valari, there's 25,000 people listening to this podcast. What is it that, if you could give those people just one thing, what would that be?
So, Mark, yesterday I thought about this because when you're asked what you're passionate about, what you think is conveying may not be what's conveyed. So I asked someone else who I talk to all the time, and here's what he said to me. He says, Valari, I know you for being a person who cares about authenticity, about showing up as who you are with no apologies. One of the things that challenges me in that authenticity every day is a question that I came across while reading this great book by the author Susan Scott. So Susan Scott wrote this book called Fierce Conversation. It's about having intentional conversations that mean something. They move towards a purpose. And so she asked this question. And this question actually rocked me to my core. It may do some of the listeners the same. The question is, what are you pretending not to know?
Wow. I've been in rooms where that question is like above the whiteboard, and I've been
Mhm.
asked that question by my own coach, early on. What am I pretending not to know? What does that mean to you?
Well, what it does is it challenges me to go in deeply and address the things that I've not wanted to address sometimes. We're in a situation right now, Mark, where our own identity is being challenged every day. Where we as people, and me in particular, as an African American woman, is being asked to answer the call in the name of some things that I just don't answer to. If I didn't know who I was, I may answer to that. So looking at what I'm pretending not to know makes me really understand that who I am is not just how I show up, but it's who I am at the core. It's what has built me. It's my experiences. It's the challenges. It's addressing those challenges. It's keeping a good circle of people around me. All of that is a part of who I am, and the things that I know for sure.
So how does answering the question, what am I pretending not to know,
Mhm.
get me to that?
So it makes you, I'm going to tell you, the one thing that happens when you ask yourself the question is the one thing that comes up is the one thing that you don't want to address. I can guarantee you.
Thank you. Now that was what I that was the little nugget that I was trying to. So what are you pretending not to know that you already know,
Yes,
but you cannot look at, that you
yes,
can't, like, that you dare not open the box to see what it has to say?
that's exactly it.
How do you
And
get the
you know
courage?
what's in there.
Yeah. Now how do you get the courage to actually take a peek?
You know what? You just have to open the box. Sometimes we'll ask ourselves that question and you dance around it. Here's what I've experienced, and even recently, because imagine this, I still have things to learn. Um, what I understand now is that some of the things that are in that box were things that I wasn't prepared to handle at the time. As life goes on and I get more experience and I gain more wisdom and then as they
Can
come
you make can you
out,
make it can you make it personal for us? Would you be willing to share what you found out?
yeah, let me think about because I just had this conversation with a good friend. It was a challenge I was facing, and I'm trying to remember the particular one because I face these so many challenges every day, Mark. Things pop up. You know, that's the beautiful thing about when you open yourself up to awareness and a journey of inquisition into who you are. Things start to pop up all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I hadn't addressed that. I didn't realize I hadn't addressed that. Um, One of the things that I have been working with and working on is the difference between self esteem and self value. A lot of people would assume those to be the same. They are not. Self esteem allows you to walk into a room, command a crowd, speak confidently with people. Self value says, what are the private decisions I'm making that are best for myself? The things that nobody knows about. And that was something I had to address again. Because one
That's
of the
profound. It
things,
every time I hear something I've never heard before, like that just blows my mind. So the difference between self-value and self-esteem is self-esteem allows you to walk into a networking meeting or a business meeting or a family gathering and hold your head up high because of how you feel, how you think and feel about yourself. And then self-worth is those private moments and how you
yes.
treat yourself, what decisions you make. I love that distinction. That's you just if people walked away with that one little nugget, what a piece of gold that was. All right, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No,
I'm just in awe.
well, and that's something that I've found that being raised as a very confident child, I hadn't really addressed the self value piece. In my parents, in their assessment of who I was, I could walk on the moon. I could do anything. And I'm grateful to them for giving me that confidence, for instilling that in me. And however, I was raised as an only child, even though I wasn't an only child. And so there were a lot of times I didn't feel like I really mattered to myself. No, I didn't have someone else appear there always telling me who I was, how I showed up. So I'm just now at this ripe old age of whatever it is I am, uh, starting to address some of those things and understanding what it really means.
So you just made me flash. So I've had stuff from childhood and things that knocked me down, but uh, I was told I was going to be the first Jewish president. I could do anything. My potential is limitless. If teachers told me that, all that stuff. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm so warm. I'm so lovable. I'm all these things. So my self-esteem was fine and dandy. What I ended up being was an alcoholic, a drug addict, a sex addict, and someone who couldn't even function in life. So the self-worth, the self-value wasn't there. And this is the first time I've ever seen the difference between self-esteem, right? Because I know I'm smart, I'm articulate, I can, like, I
Yes,
know all those things.
yes, yes.
But then what did I actually do to myself? What a, thank you for coaching me online. That was brilliant.
That's what I love about these impromptu conversations. We get to just show up, have a good conversation, be who we are, and see what comes of it.
Yeah, there was no way I was going to script a conversation with you. Um, so we go to that piece. So now we see the difference with that. So we look in the box, we get and I think the only way to look in the box really is to get support, is to be in a program where people are around you, have a coach, a therapist, someone who's willing to help you open that box because it scares you, because it's in a
Yes.
box for a reason, um, and then once you look in that box and it is scary. Like for me, the box is scary. For
Hmm.
me, not looking in the box, I looked in the box. Actually, I looked in the box very recently. And when I opened it, there was a crown.
Huh.
I literally did a meditation where I looked in a box and there was a crown.
Wow, I want to hear more about that.
So Mark means king.
Okay.
And what I hear from the people around me is that I'm still playing small, right? Wrote a book, got a thriving practice, right? I got raised great kids. I got married. I'm moving to a new house, all this stuff, and I'm still playing small. And for me to open that box and look at it's for me, it's like I'm not taking my rightful place
Hmm.
in my responsibility to impact other people's lives. And I have not wanted to look at that. I have wanted to say I'm disposable. I'm cool. And the people who are around me are, the people who listen to the podcast, that's cool. And the people who coach with me, that's cool. My kids, cool. But everybody would be fine if I wasn't here, right?
Wow.
And I didn't even know that was there. It was again, looking in the box, I went, oh, I'm disposable. And I had the experience this, very recently in this transformational workshop that I'm in, that I am uh, indispensable as long as I'm breathing. The day I'm not breathing, God decided I was dispensable. As long
Yes.
as I'm taking a breath, because I have friends who were 40, 30, 27, who were 10 times more impactful than I am, and then gone.
And gone.
So
Yes.
I'm here. So every time I take a breath, I am indispensable. And I think I have self value for the
Yes.
first time in my life.
Yes. That's awesome. That is
I
awesome.
got goosebumps at my own coaching. Holy, like, you're masterful. You are magical. So okay, so you get the courage to look in the box. You open the
Yes.
box. You see what's in the box. Now what?
You've got to see it for what it is. You've got to call a thing a thing. And you hear that all the time, but really, you do have to look at it in all of its truth. Sometimes, like you said, you're going to need support with that because you may not be able to immediately identify what it is. That's where you call the troops in, your inner circle, and say, here's what I'm seeing. I need some help. And I'm really fortunate to have that kind of help around me, Mark. I would not have made it through these last 4 years, which have been a huge transition for me, had I not had those people to come in and say, I see what I'm looking at. What do I do with this?
Hmm. So okay. So now, how do you start the journey? So we're
I'm
scared,
starting
right?
to,
So like
yes,
we talk about, the people that you and I are having a conversation with right now. Uh, we're scared. We have
yes,
bills to pay.
yep,
We have responsibilities, parents, kids, whatever our responsibilities are. Oh, it's too late. One of mine was I'm 57 years old. What
mhm,
rightful place am I going to be taken? What am I, what more can I do? Right. And I'm sure there's someone who's 65 or 70 going, kid. Um, but I was thinking that. So now, uh, how do you fight through all the reasons it was in the box in the first place?
So let me share with you, if I may, just a quick snippet of what my last 4 years look like. And I'm just going to kind of jump in the middle of it. I was running a very successful real estate practice. I also had my coaching business, and I knew that I had to make a change. So or actually, really, I had to choose a side. And I knew my purpose was in coaching and training. I'd been doing it since 2007. So I retired from real estate. That's where my income was, but it was going to be okay. So I got some good traction with the coaching and the training business, was going along, went down to visit my mother on one of my monthly visits and realized she needed me there, like for good.
Mm.
So with 3 weeks notice, I canceled a major speaking engagement, income, and put everything I owned in a U-Haul truck, put my car on the back of it, and drove from Seattle to San Diego. Just about where you are right now.
Oh, I'm in San Diego right now.
Yes, yes. My mom was in Carlsbad. So I spent the next 3 years, and I'm honored to have done so, taking care of mom and being there for her and just doing whatever she needed. And I watched my business, in my estimation, wither away. It wasn't a concern. I knew what I was doing at the time. I would have never made a different decision. And yet I knew at some point I'd have to address it. So once mom decided that wings were better than feet, she left us, and now it was time for Valerie to figure out what to do.
I'm
So
touched by that beautiful analogy. But okay, now it's
yes,
time for Valerie.
time to go. So there I was in San Diego, trying to figure out what to do. It was the day mom died. I was walking along the beach, which is something I did every day, and I walked into a friend's shop, and she had just started making some jewelry, just like out of the blue. She looked at me and she says, "What happened?" And I said, "My mom died, like just a little while ago." And she says, "Huh." And she came up, she gave me a big hug, and and I said to her, "You know, Gabby, I trust this journey. It's just I don't know where it's taking me right now. I used to know where I was going." And she reached over the counter to grab something she had been working on, and she says, "I guess I was making this for you." When the verbiage came, it was strange, but I did it anyway. And she handed me this copper bracelet, which I will show you next time I see you, Mark. I wear it every day. And on it, it said, "Trust the journey."
Mm.
And that was my confirmation.
Wait, hold on a
Yeah,
second.
I'm going to be okay.
So you hold on a second. You're like, I don't know, I don't trust the journey. And she's like, I just happen to have the thing that says trust the journey right here.
Right here. She had made it. She had never made bracelets before. She had never put sayings on them before until that day. And she reached over the counter and said, "This is yours." She says, "I guess I was making this for you." There it is. So
Oh
that
my
was
God.
the one thing that propelled me to make the big leap, to move to the East Coast and just start going. Now, when I got here, I also didn't realize that I needed a break. I needed a mental break. I needed a spiritual break, and I took it. And then it was time for me to move forward. Here's how I got started. And this is the question you asked. Number one, I knew that I had the purpose, I understood that. Secondly, I had to just step up and swing. I didn't have a lot of plans. I just had to get going. And sometimes we wait until everything is in place before we start. We just have to start. And as we move, the things that we need to support us will show up.
So ready, fire,
I
aim.
ready, fire, aim. And sometimes it's more fire, ready, aim.
Right?
Just go.
Fire, 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 and then figure it out.
And then figure it out. You get feedback. Everything that happens is not a mistake, it's feedback. And you take that feedback and you put it into your next action. You adjust as you need to. You get some more support wherever you need it, and you keep going.
I'm going to slow you down on that one because I think this is a really brilliant point. Let's talk about obstacles, uh, the resistance, things going wrong, quote unquote wrong, and seeing it not as an indictment of you, not an indictment of your effort, not an indictment of anything. It's just a feedback loop, including just a conversation where someone didn't get what you had to say. It's feedback. Are you landing? Are you like? Can you talk about that? Talk just how help people switch from beating themselves up to whatever's happening in the world is just feedback for you to shift and grow and learn.
Yes. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the knowing who you are. Part of that is knowing what value you bring and knowing that and trusting that when we're working within our purpose, we have everything we need to fulfill that purpose. So, what may feel like failure or a temporary setback is just more information to get us on the right track. Just like when we're going down the road, and we don't do it any much often, but we look at a map. If things aren't looking right, you look at that map and you figure out, okay, here's where I got off track. This is where I need to be, and you just keep going.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you, that's the one thing that has propelled me to where I am, and I'm nowhere near where I'm going.
Well, again, with that trajectory that you have, and I have, and a lot of people have, we're never really near where we're going. We only are where we are, right?
That's it. That is it. And you know what? When you open yourself up to these possibilities, and I don't know if people are ready to hear this, people show up in your life to support and confirm that you're on the right track. Now, I'm going to give you another goosebump story. I was in the mall the other day. Don't even go into the mall very often anymore for whatever reason, but I went because I felt like I was supposed to go. I walked into a store, just browsing, and a woman walked up to me, introduced herself. Her name was Trudy, and told me about the things in her store. And then she looked at me and she says, are you looking? I said, I'm just looking for some business clothing. I'm just going to browse. And she says, okay. And I said, I don't need the basic corporate stuff. I get to write, I said it this way too. I said, I get to write my own script, Trudy, because I own my own business. And she looked at me and she said, yeah, I know. That made me stop. She knew. How did Trudy know? Trudy doesn't know me. So then she leaned in really closely and she said, are you ready? And I said, am I ready for what, Trudy? And she says, are you ready for where you're going? Because you are about to soar.
So keep going. Keep
Goosebumps,
going.
right?
Keep going. If you're
So,
watching the video, you're seeing me freak out
yeah, right,
with
right,
the goosebumps.
exactly.
But if you're listening, just know it. Okay, go on.
So I said to her, and so there's that moment where you're like, okay, I mean, I know what she's saying to me is true, but she's saying this to me and I've never seen this woman before. So I said to her, yeah, I think so. And she says, no, you have to know that you're ready. You have to be ready to go because you are headed on a trajectory like you have no idea. So Trudy and I continue to have this great 15-minute conversation. I left there knowing again that the only reason why I went in that store was to talk to Trudy.
Right?
Then a really good friend of mine, as I was recounting this story, said to me, so you do realize if we go back and look for Trudy, Trudy won't be there, right?
Right. Yeah, Trudy is one of those mythical people, and like, what? We never had a Trudy working here.
We never had a Trudy that worked here. But the message that I needed on that day and at that time came for me. And that's the thing I want people to understand is when you move within your purpose and you just keep going, that support shows up
Mm.
in ways that you could have never imagined. You just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Where you trip up, trip and go again.
This podcast is an example of that. I was sitting on my cushion meditating, and the voice said, "Start a podcast." Like, I'm not starting a podcast. I sound like a male Fran Drescher. I can't even stand yeah, I can't even stand my voice. And it's like, no, you're going to start a podcast. I'm like, I'm not starting a podcast. I don't want to start a podcast. I can barely keep up with what I do. And the voice was like, no, you're going to start a podcast. So I
I
talked to one of my
love it.
clients who happened to own a podcasting company. And he goes, you absolutely should start a podcast. Oh my God, I'll introduce you to the producer. And then he introduces me to Kate, my producer, and she falls in love with this podcast and what we're doing here, right? So she just makes every effort to make it so easy for me. The guests come like this, right? And the guests come on, and
Yes.
I'm a neophyte. I don't even know what I'm doing. And the guests are brilliant. I get my first 10 podcasts done, and I'm in tears because it was effortless. I took actions, I worked, but it was effortless. The 10 were done, and the people were like jaw dropping. And I was like, if I died now and left these 10 podcasts, I feel like and next thing you know, it's not even a year later, we're passing 80,000 listens, over 100
Wow.
episodes. And, and I didn't like all the support in the world just showed up.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. That's what happens. It just shows up. But you have to be moving in order to be steered.
Yeah. I had to turn on the mic and I had to listen to my own voice.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so now you met Trudy and
Yes.
you're ready to fly. So what's going on now?
Oh, you're going to challenge me in that way. You're going to make me tell 25,000 people what's next for me, huh?
Yes, I am.
This is accountability at its finest. I think this, Mark, was your real reason for asking me on this podcast.
It was no,
I
yeah,
think,
this was your real reason for asking me on the podcast.
oh my
My real reason
gosh,
was to
now
learn the
I've
difference
got
between
goosebumps.
my real reason was to learn the difference between self-esteem and self-value. So you go.
Okay. So I have been told by more than one person that I need to have a show, much like you. And I'm going to get that going. And here's
Okay.
the thing,
What
I'm
kind of
not
show?
even sure how to do it.
Mhm.
Just similar to what you're doing. So, guess who's going to be one of my first guests? Just sharing the message of what's been shared with me,
Cool.
making sure that there's a voice out there for people and a place to be heard when we're having challenges, helping people understand that setbacks are not permanent, that they're also necessary to growth, and that they're a gift, that procrastination is merely the pursuit of perfection. And once we let go of that, we can move forward. Believe me, I know a lot about that subject. Um, just letting people know that when you don't have it all figured out, and none of us do, there are resources. So I don't know what the show looks like, but here it is. I'm going to start a show.
Outstanding. So the good news is I help other people start shows. So offline, you and I will talk about how you can start your show. I absolutely.
Wow.
So see, people show up. I got it. I have
Indeed.
emails. I've helped at least 6 people start shows. Uh, so much so that I've been asked to start my own podcasting network, but I don't want to moonlight. But I'm in. I'll help you. So that's
Oh my
exciting.
gosh.
That's really exciting. So how can people get in touch with you?
So here's the funny part. And yes, I'm, relatively tech savvy. I have a technology background, which a lot of people don't know. And yet the best way to reach me is to call me. Isn't that weird? Um,
Don't put your phone number out here though.
I'm not going
Just
to do that.
just give me your website and your email, and we'll go from there.
Website is fiercefocuscoaching.com.
If ever a name fit its owner.
Yes.
Awesome.
And I'm sorry, I said coaching. That all stills me. It's fiercefocusstrategies.com
Right.
because I recently changed my branding. Fiercefocusstrategies.com.
Cool.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I send out an annual tweet, so you can find me there every now and then.
An annual tweet. But man, does that tweet
But
get engagement.
right, any of those I do monitor. I'm available, and we'll check the messaging on, and really look forward to connecting with people one on one because that's where the magic happens.
All right, so we will put all of that in the show notes so that people don't have to remember it, and they can just click on you and get to you because that is a worthwhile journey. Thank you for being with us.
Thank
I
you,
really
Mark.
appreciate it.
This was incredible. And now it's out there. And so here we go.
Here we go. You just told the world you're starting a show. So, 25,000 people are looking for your show. So, to everybody else, thank you. This journey has been so far profound, and I am grateful and love every single one of you for giving me your ears and your heart. Have a great rest of the day.